Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us today for our advisor forum, the Grad Advising Playbook, Tips and Tools for Grad Degree Progress. My name is Ross Hawkins. I'm the director of the Academic Advising and Transfer Center. I am happy that we're able to present this topic today and happy that our partnership with the Graduate College continues. A couple announcements before I turn it over to today's presenters. First, I did want to mention that our next Academic Advisor Forum will be next Monday. It will be offered on Zoom as well. The title of that forum is General Education Sampler, The Science of Discovery, Navigating University Courses for Today's Advisors. Kim Stagner from the Academic Advising and Transfer Center will facilitate that advisor forum, and there will be representatives from each of those science areas to talk a little bit more about what students can expect in those science courses and really help advisors navigate assisting students with their selections in the natural world areas. I also wanted to mention that we're now less than 2 weeks away from the Kathy J. Davis Master Advisor Reception. That reception will be held on Monday, March 10th in the Plaster Student Union Ballroom East. I encourage all of you to attend that reception. We will recognize our 2025 Excellence in Advising Award winners, a professional advisor undergraduate, a faculty advisor undergraduate, as well as a graduate advisor award. And it is a celebration for all advising on campus. It's a day that we celebrate what we do and recognize the important role that we play in student success and working with each of our students. So for today's advisor forum, our presenters are Dr. Carissa Holscher and Christy Graham. Carissa is the Associate Dean of the Graduate College. She has worked at Missouri State University for 9 years, began as a professor in our Department of Communication, Film, Communication, Media, Journalism, and Film. And Carissa has been at the Graduate College for 3 years. She oversees graduate programs as well as student support. Christy Graham has been with the Graduate College for 31 years. She also worked 2 years as a student worker in the Graduate College. So 33 years of experience in the Graduate College, which is pretty phenomenal. Christy works with helping students cross the finish line, so primarily oversees the graduation process, as well as works closely with Graduate Council. Again, happy to have both of you here today. Please join me in welcoming Carissa and Christy.
Thank you so much, Ross. That's quite an introduction. And I do have to say, it is amazing to me every time I hear the statistic that Christy has worked for 33 years in the Graduate College, because you can tell by looking at her that that means she started when she was 3 years old. So
I wish.
I am really excited to be here presenting to all of you today and to have Christy, my colleague, join us. As is probably evidenced by that introduction, she is the true expert for many things policy related, process related in terms of advising all of your graduate students. And so I'm excited to sort of get her a little bit more involved in this fantastic partnership with the AATC. And so I'm hopeful that all of you will continue to see her as a valuable resource when you have graduate advising questions. So we're going to go through a couple of different things today. I'm going to sort of give you an overview of what we do in the Graduate College. If you've attended previous advising forums that we have hosted, then you have probably seen some of this before, but I have updated data for you. And I always like to give you sort of a reminder, refresher of who does what in the Graduate College so that you know we're here to support you and you know who you can contact when you have specific questions. We see ourselves here in the Graduate College as sort of the ultimate service unit. We're here to support you. And so I think you need to know that that's our outlook, and we want you to know you can contact any of us at any time for any reason. But that also means that we do a whole variety of things and work with programs that look vastly different. So I'm going to give you some data that sort of showcases the diversity of our programs, of our students at the graduate level. And then I'll turn it over to Christy, and she will walk you through some of the more concrete tips that we have for you in terms of advising graduate students. But if you don't mind indulging me for just a second, I want to start today's presentation by asking all of you a question. So I know that most of you, actually a couple of questions. I know that most of you have your cameras off, and that's totally fine, but I hope that you feel brave enough to unmute and perhaps share with us some of your answers to these questions that you can see on the screen. I'm doing this very selfishly because we want to continue offering advising forums that are focused at the graduate level that genuinely help all of you. And so I know not all of you on this call are advising graduate students currently, but for those of you who are, especially if you are advising at both levels, I'm just curious, what does successful graduate advising look like to you? And how does it look different from or similar to undergraduate advising? Is anybody willing to share what successful graduate advising looks like to you? And please do remember that Ross introduced me as a former faculty member, so I have wait time down. I'm comfortable with an awkward silence, so I'll wait for any of you. Dr. Wood, go ahead, please.
Well, when I was advising in the graduate program, successful advising for me looked like being able to provide structure to students, especially with respect to when they were doing a thesis. So we would set a date of when the thesis should be done, and then we work backwards on the dates. So then something has to be due 2 weeks before, then that's when you get it to your committee. And then 2 weeks before, you need to have this draft done, and 2 weeks before. And so then that scheduling goes all the way to current time so that you have a plan, and then it's up to the student to follow that plan. But we created it together, and that's when I found that students were more likely to finish their thesis on time. If you go with the adage that a good thesis is a done thesis.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that you bring up a good point. Most often graduate advising includes movement toward some big culminating project that some undergraduate programs might experience, but not all. And I think that is one of the more daunting things that our graduate students face is I have to move toward this big project. How am I actually going to get there? And advisors play a serious role in that. Anybody else have a response to that first question? Katie, please go ahead.
I think a big thing is connection. The graduate program that I advise is primarily online, and it's only usually like a 2 to 2.5 year program. So I don't really get to have as much time with them as I do my undergrad students. And I feel like they are really craving a connection because they're not here on campus. So making sure to know that like they have access to resources here on campus still, just like any other student would. A lot of them, are older adults, they might have families, so getting able to like connect them more with those resources or just connect to them in general, because like I have kids, you have kids, I get it, life is busy. So I really feel like my students oftentimes crave that connection more that they don't always necessarily get in grad programs, I think.
I so appreciate that response, Katie. I think that it's easy to convince ourselves that graduate students might be less needy as advisees because they have a degree under their belt. They've got the sort of system and structure figured out to some extent, but that's absolutely not the case. I think most of our graduate students are absolutely craving that connection. And building the connection at the graduate level can be more challenging because of a couple of reasons Katie pointed out. These programs are faster, they're shorter than the typical undergraduate degree, and so you've got less time to develop the relationship. Many of our graduate students, as you'll see in a moment, are probably juggling all kinds of life expectations. They might be working a full-time job and going to grad school part-time. They might be parents. They might be caring for sick parents. They've got typically more demands on their time than the average undergraduate student. And so making that and establishing that connection can be even more challenging at the graduate level, but no less important. Any other final thoughts on that top question, what successful graduate advising look like? Another Katie, go ahead.
Yeah, so one thing that this kind of ties in both questions, like how is it different to undergraduate advising, but
Right.
the program I advise at the graduate level is I definitely notice that the students have not quite as set goals as, you know, the undergraduate. A lot of times they come in with a very set, like, formulaic expectation. I will graduate in 4 years. This is the pacing I'm expecting, and it can feel very like very like repetitive from student to student. Whereas for the grad students, what to me means successful is that I'm meeting them where they are with their goals, because their goals can vary quite drastically. Their expectations can vary quite drastically from one to another. So for me, being a successful graduate advisor is finding out like what their priorities are, their goals, and helping them achieve the goals that they have for themselves in the timeline and the expectation that they have.
Absolutely. I appreciate that response too, because I think at the graduate level, students are getting the opportunity to narrow in on their expertise, which then means their motivations become even more individualized. What their goals, their expectations are also individualized. How about you, Adam?
Yeah, so for me, I'm actually in graduate school working on I'm getting my MA in communication in May. And
Yay.
what I found in with my graduate advisor, who I really, really love to death, she is very willing she's compassionate about me, but she's not afraid to hold my feet to the fire and I always like to say, give me a verbal kick in the butt when I need it. Because she understands the busyness, but she's also she knows what's expected and wants me to rise to the occasion because she knows I can do it.
Oh, I so appreciate that. So yeah, at the graduate level, we still need that sort of motivation, even tough talks sometimes. And again, that kind of comes back to everything. Adam, I think you're a perfect example. Everything that our graduate students are juggling, right? All the balls in the air. So I'm very excited that you're going to be completing your MA. Make sure you get in my line at graduation.
No, I'm going to do it.
All right, how about that second question? And again, this is Christy and I being selfish. We're taking notes. What are the most common challenges you face with your when you are advising your graduate students? And in particular, maybe think through the lens of what are some maybe other topics or workshops, help sessions that we might be able to provide for you to address some of these challenges. Your grad students are all easy, huh? Dr. Jackson, formerly known as Dr. Brown. How about you?
I love it. Hey, how are you?
I'm great, thanks. What are some challenges you face?
Since we're in a clinical professional program, it's really preparing our students for the workforce, leaving academia, and being prepared for that new transition.
Yes, absolutely. I was just having a conversation this morning about how many of our graduate students here at Missouri State are not staying in the academic setting. They're not necessarily going on for PhDs. We have some fantastic professional doctorate programs. OT is a perfect example of that. And so more often than not, the end goal for our graduate students, regardless of their level, is to enter the workforce. And so we are both developing the academic skills and the professional skills in our students. And that's sometimes really hard for faculty members who have built their whole career in the academy. And I think that's something that we have to keep in mind as well. How about you, Rebecca?
Hello. So I'm not a traditional academic advisor, but I do work in the Career Center. So I wanted to kind of come on the tail end of that conversation.
Yes.
That I think, all students' career development is very, very important. And one common challenge that I see with my graduate students are international students solidifying OPT, CPT, and getting into the workforce after graduation.
Yes, absolutely. That is a very common challenge, I think. And Rebecca probably knows this, but I'll share with the rest of you, and Dr. Jackson, if this is something that's useful to your program as well. The Career Center and the Graduate College actually partnered to provide all of our graduate students access to a platform called Beyond Graduate School. You can find it on either the Career Center's website or our website. Beyond Graduate School is a platform that provides a whole slew of professional development trainings, workshops, webinars, that is primarily focused on how graduate students can leverage their graduate degree to get a job, and specifically a job outside of the academy. And so there's some great resources available to you there as well. All right, well, please continue to share challenges with Christy and me as we sort of explore other ways that we can be a resource to you in developing your graduate advising skills. We would love to hear from you. So share those at any time just by reaching out to us, and we'll continue on with sort of the meat and potatoes of our presentation today. As I mentioned at the top, I want to just give you again a brief overview of graduate education at MSU. Some of you have likely seen these slides before, but they're updated with fall 24 data. And I think it's a good means for you all to sort of get a big overview of what grad ed looks like and how sort of the norm, the average, or the majority might look very different from or similar to your academic program or the students that you're working with. And I think it's also a good reminder to share with you exactly who in the graduate college is doing what and what we focus on. And so this is sort of a weird org chart for the graduate college. Of course, Dean Masterson is our boss, and she has been in her role for 10 years and is, of course, retiring at the end of June. So we're all nervously looking toward the future and our big transition. When Ross mentioned earlier that I sort of oversee program and student support, there's a whole bunch of things happening under that umbrella that I can't take any responsibility for. It's all of the other names that you see on the screen, but we sort of touch a little bit of everything outside of admissions in terms of graduate program and student support. And so Lisa Taylor, who I'm sure you all have seen or heard from, is a fantastic resource in our office for anything related to graduate student research funding. And she sort of helps us with the day-to-day operations of our unit. Christy, of course, you're going to hear from, and she is the, I think, advising guru. She knows degree audits like the back of her hand. She knows processes and policies, and of course, that's what you get after 33 years of experience. Philip Raleigh, I'm sure many of you have interacted with him. He is your primary contact for anything related to graduate assistantships. And then Madison Jordan is a relatively new member of our team focused on marketing and recruitment. And then we do, of course, have a centralized process for graduate admissions. Amber McBride is the director of graduate admissions, and her team is always available to help either from the student perspective or the program's perspective in terms of processing admissions. And then, of course, we have our graduate interdisciplinary programs. Jerry Masterson, the director, and Warren, who I think is on the call. Hi, Warren. Our graduate interdisciplinary programs unit is a valuable resource for us in terms of developing all kinds of international partnerships and really focusing on interdisciplinary collaborations from an academic perspective. And so they're a really useful tool when somebody comes to us with an outside the box idea for getting a student a credential. GIP really helps us out with that. I just want to show you briefly some data just so you sort of see where we are. We are in a period of enrollment decline at the graduate level here at the university, but we're not panicking yet because we did sort of expect this to happen for a variety of reasons. A couple of big ones, we have some funded programs in education that have lost state and federal funding, and we sort of knew that was going to go away at some point. We also have some programs like project management, computer science, that just really ballooned overnight. Computer science is a good example. They went from something like 30 students to 150 students in like a 2-year period. And so we've got some programs that really grew really quickly that are now having to right size and figure out sort of their student to faculty ratio. So we saw some of this decline coming, but this is sort of, I wouldn't be wearing my associate dean hat if I didn't tell you that enrollment is all of us. It includes the work of everybody on campus. And so we are certainly keeping a close eye on these numbers and want to make sure that everybody in our area who wants access to a graduate degree or a graduate credential can get it from Missouri State. So we're hoping that those numbers creep back up here in the future. Our graduate applications sort of peaked at the 21-22 cycle, but I'm putting this up so that you all see our office. Amber and her team of 3 with a couple of part-time folks are processing all of these applications every cycle, and so that keeps them busy. They're happy to do it, but these applications look vastly different from program to program, and I think they do a fantastic job of timely and helpful application processing. Here's where I get to brag on Christy because I know she won't do it herself, but she is the single person in our office on our campus who clears every single graduate student for graduation. And we're just going back to 2018 here. I can't imagine how much these numbers have grown since Christy started in the graduate college. But again, she is processing 2,200 individuals to receive a graduate credential every year, and she does that all on her own. And so this is just my opportunity to brag on her. So give her another shout out. And then let's see, I think this one's an interesting one just to sort of see our demographics. These are some of the demographics that surprised me when I moved to the graduate college, because these demographics don't necessarily match those in my home academic program. And so maybe they do for yours, maybe they don't. But the majority of our graduate students are part-time, and that sort of speaks to what we were talking about earlier and the demands that our students have on their time. So the fact that 56% of our students are part-time implies that most of them are working full-time, engaged in family obligations, and might not have that traditional grad school experience that we think of when we think of a full-time graduate student who's on funding, working in a lab, and going to class every day. Our gender breakdown is pretty similar to what we see at the graduate level across the country. It has trended female for years. And I particularly like that because I love empowering women, but we of course want to make sure that we continue to give access to all kinds of students who might want a graduate credential. And then our piece of the pie for international students is what has grown the most in recent years, but we are seeing a small decline there. And we're seeing our out-of-state piece of the pie grow, which I think is fantastic. But the vast majority of our students at the graduate level continue to come from Missouri. Here's our distribution by college. I think this is another interesting one because especially for those of us who are faculty members or staff advisors operating in a home academic unit, we tend to think that our program is the most important program because it is, right? But I think this is a good sort of visual of how the graduate college spends our time and the number of students that we're serving across the campus. And so we have seen the numbers fluctuate back and forth between McQueary and the College of Business for quite some time in terms of who has the lead. So McQueary has the largest graduate enrollment at this time. And we see the library increasing their sliver of the pie because they have some fantastic new certificates that they're offering at the graduate level. And so this is our breakdown here. And I was always surprised by this, so I like sharing it when I get the chance to. We are primarily a master's granting institution. 81% of our graduate students are pursuing a master's. The 6% that you see here for certificate students, those are students who are pursuing only a certificate. So many of our master's and doctorate students are pursuing a certificate along with their graduate degree program, and those are captured in the degree program rather than the certificate piece of the pie. Specialist, that's a particular degree offered out of the College of Education. So again, I think this is a good representative of our Carnegie classification, our professional doctoral granting classification. We continue to be a primarily master's granting institution. And then in terms of our modality, I have to stop making the joke that I can't for the life of me figure out what happened in 2020 because people have stopped laughing at that and it just hurts my feelings, so I won't say it anymore. But I do think that this trend line is going to stabilize and that this is what we will see for the foreseeable future, that our graduate students are pretty much half and half. And so when you think back to the early 2000s, we were primarily offering traditional master's programs in a face-to-face setting. And now we're seeing that the bigger piece of the pie is entirely online graduate programs. And I think this again matches sort of the current demand of the typical graduate student. So there's some data for you. I'm just a data nerd. I like sharing it. Do with it what you will. Feel free to pause and ask questions if you like. But I'm going to continue on and make sure I introduce you to what we refer to as our graduate education toolkit. The Grad Ed Toolkit is a Brightspace community page that we describe as a one-stop shop for graduate advising. So any sort of advising issue at the graduate level, we try to provide resources on this Brightspace page for you. This includes things like marketing, recruitment, admissions, all the stuff. And so we migrated this from Blackboard to Brightspace last year. It is reserved for faculty and staff. And so you have to request permission to enroll. You can enroll by searching for the Graduate Education Toolkit or the course code community_58. And that'll come to us and we'll be glad to grant you permission to enroll if you haven't already. And as you explore this resource for you, please reach out to us if you have any suggestions for additions. We are always trying to make it better. We want it to be helpful to you. But there's all kinds of stuff in the Grad Ed Toolkit, a lot of which we'll talk about today, but not all of it. So I would encourage you to explore that as you have time. This is what you can see, what you can find in the toolkit. We've got important links there relevant to the graduate college calendar, any sort of current events, things like that. And then we do have a section on what we refer to as GPD onboarding. For those of you who are not GPDs, that stands for Graduate Program Director. I was a former GPD, and when I said yes to that job, I had no idea what all it entailed. And so the graduate college provided a list of tasks that should be getting done to ensure that a graduate program is successful. And that list was my saving grace. It was my Bible that got me through my first few years as a GPD. And so there's some great resources there. If somebody is sort of new to helping to run a graduate program, that section can just sort of tell you where should I go to get started. We post information about our regular GPD meetings, and this is another area for me to shout out the AATC because they are gracious enough to grant master advisor credit for our GPD meetings that are focused on things that are at least advising tangential. Anything that's related to advising, they do award master advisor credit for those meetings, and we are grateful. If you can't attend those meetings, by the way, anybody is welcome to attend. You don't have to be a GPD. But if you can't attend, we often record them and post the recordings to the Grad Ed Toolkit, and we provide handouts, documents, anything like that in that area of the Grad Ed Toolkit. And then I know a big, sort of very hairy, messy, complex process is hiring graduate assistants. And we've added a lot of resources in the last year to the graduate assistance section of the toolkit, just to sort of walk you through the hiring process, the training process, and those things. So obviously today we're focused on academic advising, and there's lots of resources up on the toolkit for you. But I'm going to turn it over to the true expert when it comes to all of this stuff, and that is Christy Graham. She's going to dig through all of the stuff that you see on this slide here. And as I'm introducing her, turning it over to her, she told me to tell you all this at the top and I forgot. We want to be able to answer your questions. So as she is talking, or if you have any questions right now, please feel free to stop us, interrupt us, put questions in chat. We would like for you to get as much out of this as possible. So interrupt as needed, ask questions. And if there aren't any questions currently, I'll turn it over to Christy to dig into these policies and procedures.
Hello, everybody. I'm so glad to be doing this. When Carissa asked me to join her, I was excited. I know several of you working with you as GPDs or on graduate council, so I recognize a lot of names, and there's a few of you I haven't had the opportunity to meet, so welcome. I'm going to go ahead and start. We're going to go through several things and quickly, so yes, please stop us and ask questions, and if you have any follow-up questions, just reach out to me, phone or email, and I'll be happy to work with you on individual situations. The first thing we're going to talk about is graduate certificates. Like Carissa said, a lot of our master's and specialist and doctorate students are also getting one or more certificates. And one thing that just tends to be a problem semester after semester is they take the courses for the certificate, but they don't ever actually apply for the certificate and get admitted. And then it comes to they get ready to graduate and they want a certificate that we didn't even know they were in. So please advise your students that they can get in their master's or doctorate program first. And then there is a way that they can get admitted to a certificate without having to pay an additional application fee. They do not go through GradCast for the certificate. So we've listed the link there, and it's on our main website, but they can just apply for a certificate without, like I say, without paying and without having to go through GradCast. Now, as a GPD, please note that those don't come through GradCast or WebAdmit, so they are going to be on the old grads dashboard that we used to use. So if you do have students that you know are entering certificate programs, just keep an eye out for that, the grads dashboard, because you do not get an email that alerts you that someone's there. So, but just remind students to please apply for the certificate so that we can award it when they get done with everything. Carissa, you can move on. Transfer credit. I deal with all the transfer credit for masters or for graduate students. There is a form that we use, which is on our main webpage under current students forms, which is a fabulous resource if you are a graduate program director or need to send in stuff for your students. Pretty much everything is on that one page. But there is the transfer credit form. A student can transfer up to 30% of the required hours for their program. And that's pretty much up to the advisor what those courses are. In this form, you'll let me know what the course is from the other university and then what you want it to count for here at Missouri State. And then I will get those posted to the Missouri State transcript, and it will then show up on their audit. The one thing to remind you on this is that we do require an official transcript before I will post transfer work. And a lot of times when students are admitted, they only have to upload the unofficial transcript. So if you do transfer credit for your students, just remind them that they will need to submit an official transcript to our graduate admissions office. The next thing is just general degree requirements. The coursework completion, at least 50% must be at the 700 level. And that is an HLC requirement. That's not us as graduate college. And all of the audits are written to look for that. So as you're advising, just make sure that if you do have a program that offers both 600 and 700 level courses, that your student is taking at least over half of them at the 700 level, so that they don't get in trouble right at the end and have to add another course or try to do something like that to get that requirement. And then also just monitor that with the accelerated programs for mixed credit and senior permission, that they don't acquire too many hours of that before they actually start their graduate program. And I mean, that's pretty well monitored, but sometimes there is a slip up where a student gets in too much and we have to try to figure out what to do with that. So just keep that in mind as you're advising students, especially if they're undergraduates that are accelerated or going on for mixed credit or senior permission. When a student graduates, they have to have a 3.0 cumulative or at least in their program of study, which again, the audit looks at both of those. So we can flag those pretty easily if a student is under in one, one or both of those categories. But that's just another thing to keep in mind for your students to make sure they have that 3.0 when they graduate.
Christy, can I interrupt here?
You bet.
One of the things we probably should have included on this slide is we do have two different policies here. So what you're seeing here is the policy focused on how, what is necessary to complete a graduate program. What we did not include is we have a separate policy for graduate degree program persistence. And so this is focused on the number of grades below a C+ that a student can accumulate. Is it 9 hours, Christy?
They can no more than 9.
No more than 9 hours. And some programs have a more restrictive cap on that. And so this is one of the questions we get pretty regularly is, at what point will a student be dismissed from a program because they have violated the program persistence requirement? And we have actually just learned in the past year that it is mathematically possible for a student to not meet the persistence requirement in their last semester, but because it is their last semester and they met the 3.0 cumulative GPA, they're cleared to graduate. And so those are two different policies. And if you ever have questions about that or need Christy to look at a particular student, she's always more than happy to do that. Thank you. Sorry for interrupting.
No, that's a good point. And then I was just the last two things for all of our graduate degree programs, they require some type of a research requirement and some type of a culminating assessment. And the research requirement is, in most cases, is a non-thesis project. We do have programs that consistently use the thesis, but a lot of them do a non-thesis project, which is some type of a research paper project, whatever, a capstone course or an internship. And all of those, there again, we outline those possibilities in the graduate catalog, and on the audit, it will when the student starts taking courses, we can figure out which way they're going. And then the culminating assessment, in most cases, is some type of a comprehensive exam or some type of a presentation, and each program defines what that is themselves. And we've been working over several years to have it where a lot of that is more automated, to where if they do it in a particular course, the audit just knows that, and we don't have to do any additional paperwork to me to put stuff in the system. But we're always willing to work with departments if they have questions about that culminating assessment, and trying to figure out how that looks and how to make it easier so that you don't have to send me as much information to verify that, or so just reach out if you have any questions and want to talk to us about that. Comprehensive exam, if you do offer a comprehensive exam, your program sets up how that is given, if it's written, if it's oral, if it's a combination of both. It varies all over campus, and we don't dictate at all how that's done. The only thing we do dictate is that you have to let me know that they passed it if we don't have it tied to something specific, like your thesis or your research requirement, that type of thing. So if you do have a comprehensive exam that shows up on your audit, you need to just let me know at the end of the semester the students that have passed. And if not, I reach out, and we have some repeat offenders that I reach out to every semester at the end because they forget to tell me, but we're getting better. So just, yeah. And they're
I was one of those repeat offenders, wasn't I?
Yes, Carissa, you were. But yeah, just reach out again if you have any questions. We had an issue this week where an advisor that has now primarily, they've become an online program. And so they're looking at now how to revamp their comps for online students that aren't, sitting here taking a test or giving a presentation. So we're kind of learning some new things as we work with her to try to figure out how that looks with some of the internet only programs.
Oops, sorry, I went the wrong way.
Seminar non-thesis reports, again, if they are doing a non-thesis, we have that tied on a lot of the programs to a particular course that the student takes. Excuse me. If not, there is a form that you can send me or just email me to let me know. Because again, just like with comps, I have no idea when the student's finished. So you have to let me know when the student's finished so that I can get that into the banner system that will then flip over and show up on the audits.
And this is one of the areas where I think Christy's expertise has really come through and helped us create more efficiencies in the grad college. So in the last year, Christy went through every single grad program to identify what the research requirement was for each program. And if it was this sort of seminar report, in the places where we could tie it to a course so that when a student gets a grade in that course, then that requirement is triggered as complete in the degree audit. We sort of automatize that, where in the past it was always a form submission. And so Christy has done great work there. If you think of other ways that we can create more efficiencies in your advising work, reach out to us because we're all ears.
Please, please. Thesis and dissertations, we migrated from an old Blackboard course to Brightspace last year. And excuse me, all the students do have to enroll in that course if they are doing a thesis. They do not enroll at all if they're not doing, if they're doing any type of capstone or non-thesis project, because your department dictates what is required for that. You set those guidelines up all on your own, and we don't ever see that research. If they are doing a thesis or a dissertation, they have to enroll in the Brightspace course. And we have significantly reduced the amount of of assignments that used to be involved in that. And we had a committee over the last probably 2 years ago that we worked on it with. And so I think it is much more streamlined now for the students than it used to be. We do also, at the advice and the request of a lot of the thesis advisors, there is a couple of things now that the thesis advisors are doing that they weren't doing before. And it has greatly improved the quality of the first draft of thesis that we are getting in, I believe. So you can also enroll in this course if you are directing thesis, and then you can see what all's there. And there's some videos, there's calendars, there's all kinds of things that are specific for the thesis. And then you'll see what would be required of your students. And I grade those assignments. And if there's any issues that come up, I reach out to the student and the thesis advisor, so we can try to get those worked out early before they get to the finish line. And I also, probably the big reminder on this is, please tell your students not to wait till the last weekend to submit all of the assignments. In the Brightspace course, we have it divided up on like early assignments, like your committee and the research compliance and all of that, and then kind of middle of the road, and then right at the end. Please have them do that, because it's frustrating for them and for me when I'm trying to grade so many things right at the end when the thesis are due. So just remind them to go in and start plugging out those assignments early, the ones they can, and then it'll just save them a lot of frustration as well if something doesn't work with their computer or with the upload or whatever. So that's my request for thesis and dissertation is apply early and apply often. No.
Yeah, absolutely. I think too, one of the things I want to just add on here is that we do take our oversight of the thesis and dissertation submission process seriously for 2 reasons. One, Christy mentioned that, if it's a seminar paper or a professional project happening in your home unit, we never see that research because your unit signs off on it. The difference between that and a thesis or a dissertation is that we, the institution, we are publishing those documents in BearWorks, our institutional repository. And so the graduate college takes responsibility for the sort of publishing arm of this. And that's why we have formatting standards. And that's why each thesis or dissertation must be reviewed by one of our reviewers. And we take that seriously. It is a published document, and we're facilitating that publication process. And 2, we take research compliance really, really seriously. And so we ask that students are documenting that they have, for example, IRB approval when it's necessary, or IACUC approval. And when a student graduates and we have signed off on their thesis, we are saying that their research compliance is in order, and that's a serious responsibility for us. So we take this part seriously. And I think Christy is in that Brightspace course every day looking at things. So, and this was me, right?
We have gotten to a student getting to the point of graduating and submitting their thesis to us, and they had not followed research compliance. And we couldn't accept the thesis. We had to maneuver to switch that student to a non-thesis project. Because we can't publish something that didn't follow compliance. So very important that if you're working with a thesis student to figure out if compliance is needed on any of the areas. Just research funding. At the beginning, Carissa mentioned Lisa Taylor does all of our research funding. There is thesis and non-thesis funding that is 3 times a year. That used to be twice a year. We just had fall and spring, and we are adding summer back. We used to have it and then got rid of it, but now we are adding it back. So there's an application online that the student submits. And there again, research compliance, if it's needed, goes along with this as well. So, because again, we take that very seriously. We want to make sure if we're funding something that they've met the compliance issues. And then we also offer graduate student travel funding if your student is presenting at a conference, and there's not set deadlines for those. I mean, at least a month in advance is helpful, but I know sometimes we do have last minute things, and you can always just work with Lisa on that. But all of that is outlined on our graduate college webpage, and you can go in and direct your students to that to try to get some funding help.
This is one area where we would love for you all to help spread the word to our students. In fact, we probably could have awarded more funding for research support this year. So please, if you have students working on research, whether it's a thesis or dissertation or another project, encourage them to apply for this funding support. I think it is a big help.
If you are a graduate program director or advising, we we have, when DegreeWorks was first set up, it was decided that graduate advisors would be allowed to put in their own exceptions on the audits, because whereas with undergraduate, all of that funnels up through the department head or whoever they put in as a proxy to approve all of that. We allow our graduate directors to make those decisions, because that's how it had been done in the past before DegreeWorks came into play. So many of you are doing your own audits and your own exceptions, and that is fantastic. Some people aren't comfortable with it yet, and so I'm always willing to do exceptions for audits. I mean, that's what I do all day, is I'm in the audit system. So I'm willing to do those for you, or I'm willing to walk you through it, to meet with you either Zoom or in person if you want to learn how to do your own exceptions. And I can just work with you individually, or like I say, if it's something where you're just not comfortable doing it, I'm happy to do this. And with some programs, I know them so well. When I do my initial checks for graduation, if I see holes in the audit, I fill in stuff because I know you approve it, because I've just worked with you long enough, or worked with your program long enough to know what courses you allow. And if I have any questions, I reach out and say, did you approve this or allow it? But again, I'm willing to work with you if you would like to learn how to do exceptions on your students. Just reach out to me and we can get that going. And if you do not have the exception tab when you go into an audit, all we need to do is just send me your name and NIM number, and I'll forward that to Nathan Hoff in the office of the registrar, and he can get you exception access to that. And then there's some through the registrar's office, there are there's help available that'll show you kind of, they break out how to do exceptions and stuff. So you could start with that, and then we could train, or we could answer questions from our office as well. So. And then 8-year exceptions. The policy says that when a student graduates, none of their coursework can be over 8 years old. And that is written into the audits as well, to where if it's a course that's beyond the 8 years, if we don't have that exception in place, it's going to drop that down to the bottom under, not allowed, because it's going to show that it's out of range. There is a form available online. We do have an exception policy in place. There's a form that the student fills out, and then you as the graduate advisor explain to us, you make your rationale, the academic rationale on why the student, it wouldn't benefit them to retake this course. Either the course hasn't drastically changed, or they've done continuing education with their job to stay up on the current topics in that area. I mean, obviously, a lot of times the reasons people do an 8-year exception is they've had health problems, or they've had life issues and they've had to drop out. Well, that's not a rationale for just allowing a course to happen. So you need to give us an academic rationale on just why it does, why it wouldn't benefit the student to retake this course now. And pretty much if we have that rationale, those are granted for the most part. So once you send the form in, I look over it, and then it goes to Carissa, and she's the one that actually looks at those and makes the decisions. And then I go in and put different exceptions in the audit, which will then show those courses if we've approved them. And the 8-year exception can happen on Missouri State courses or transfer courses, either one. But again, it has to have the rationale of why we should count this course now, and not make the student take it again to get knowledge that they may need. So just keep that in mind. And if we have questions, we'll reach out and have you explained it a little further. But that form is available on that forms page on our graduate college website under current students. That is there as well. And then applying to graduate, we're getting better with this, but we still have students who, 2 years later will contact me and want to know why they never got a diploma, and it's because they never applied to graduate. We have no way in the system of triggering when a student might be graduating we just don't. So we rely on the students to apply to graduate, and that's how I know then to do the initial degree check and to clear them for graduation. So please remind your students every semester, remind your students if they're planning to graduate. Spring and summer are a little bit different, because if the student is graduating in the summer, in that application, it asks them if they want to walk in the May commencement. Which is a big deal since we don't have a summer commencement anymore. So they can apply for summer graduation and just elect to walk in the May commencement. And that's what we want them to do. So just remind them to apply. There is a deadline, March 31st and October 31st, to get their name in the program, the commencement program. They can apply after that. They can apply all semester. They can apply up till the day I have to clear people, which is usually about 6 weeks after graduation. But their name won't appear in that program. And for a lot of them, that is extremely important. So remind them of those deadlines. And then also the certificate. They have to apply for the certificate to graduate, or we won't know that they get it. And this is where we run into, sometimes they'll go to apply to graduate and not see their certificate program listed. And that's because they never applied to get admitted to it. So once they're admitted to it, then both of those programs will show up and we can clear them and award both of those degrees. Another thing that, and it's generally in a couple of programs with our international students, but they want to defer walking in commencement because they're trying to get visas for their families to get here. And if that is the case, the student just needs to reach out to the office of the registrar via email, and they will work with them to delay that graduation. I think they could delay it either one semester or up to 1 year to try to get their families here on a visa. So that's just a little FYI if you do have international students that might need to use that.
All right, folks, I think that wraps up all of our sort of meat and potatoes of the content we had for you today. We would love to take your questions about anything or everything. It doesn't have to be about anything we presented on today. So, or maybe something you saw sparked a question. So what questions do you have for us about graduate advising?
Carissa, you want to unshare your screen and we can just go back to the gallery view?
I have a question.
Great,
Yes.
Thanks, Rebecca. Go ahead.
I want to make sure that I was understanding this correctly. If a student goes through their master's program and doesn't complete their thesis within 8 years, they don't have their master's degree. Was I understanding that correctly?
Well, if they take over, it's not just thesis, it's just I mean, the graduate coursework by policy has to have been taken within 8 years. So like if a student starts and then, you know, they take a new job and they leave for 7 years and then come back, well, by the time they graduate, that first coursework's going to be outside that 8-year limit. And they would need to do the exception for that, because then at the point they graduated, we would have allowed those courses that are beyond 8 years.
Okay.
And that's exactly why we have the exception policy in place, because in many instances, we don't want to graduate our students with a course that's over 8 years old, especially in our health professions or in sort of computer science, technology-based degrees where the content has drastically changed in that 8-year window. We want to make sure we're graduating true experts. But we have the exception in place because in many instances, that course content has not drastically changed. We are not doing something, you know, unethical or problematic by awarding that degree after an 8-year window. So we do have the exception in place, and we just look for that rationale that Christy mentioned. It's a good question. Steve, go ahead. I see. Oh, there you are.
Sorry. Yes, quick clarification, I think, with the information that 50% of a graduate program must be at the 700 level. Does that include graduate certificates?
No. A graduate certificate can, I mean, if it's a 12-hour certificate, it can technically be 4 600 level classes. But if they are rolling that into the master's, they do need to take that into account to make sure that they have enough 700 to match that out.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, great question. Many of our policies apply primarily to graduate degree programs. So master's, specialist, doctorate. Occasionally there is a policy that is specific to certificates, but certificates tend to be less rigorous in terms of the policies that have to be met. A perfect example is the degree persistence policy we mentioned earlier. That does not apply to graduate certificates. So students can continue taking certificate classes if that's all that they're enrolled in and get C's or worse. They can just continue taking those classes. They just won't be eligible to graduate with the certificate.
Well, and also with the transfer policy, like is our 30%, that's also a policy if a student is doing 2 graduate degree programs, so like 2 masters, or there's only a 30% overlap that can happen for those, but certificates don't fall into that either. So like if a student does do a certificate, they can bring that entire certificate into a master's or vice versa. So there's not that 30% rule when we're working with the certificates and the degree programs.
As y'all can see, it can get complex really fast, which is why we have Christy and she's never allowed to retire.
Well, please
Ross,
ask, because it does get confusing.
It does. Ross, I want to make sure you have time for any housekeeping, but we're also happy to answer any other questions that anybody has.
Yeah, great. If anyone else does have any questions, please feel free to raise your hand, speak up, or enter in the chat. I did want to mention that today's advisor forum has been recorded. So if there are individuals in your area who could benefit from the information that Carissa and Christy shared today, please let them know that a recording of it will be posted on the Mo State Advising YouTube channel within the next 1 to 2 weeks. Other than that, I just hope I have an opportunity to see all of you again next Monday, March 3rd, for our next advisor forum on Zoom. And again, hopefully at the Kathy J. Davis Master Advisor Reception on Monday, March 10th. Other than that, enjoy the beautiful weather. Oh, I think we do have one question. Tanya.
Carissa,
Yep.
Tanya, are you referring to the graduate assistantship, the English language?
Yeah, I can speak to both of those things, but I would imagine this doesn't apply to everybody. So, Tanya, if you want to hang out, I'll happily describe this, and anybody else that wants to hear it as well. But we also want to be respectful of your time. So for everyone else, thank you so much. We appreciate your time. Ross, thank you for the invitation. This was fantastic.
Yes. Thank you for the great partnership, everyone. Have a great rest of your Wednesday. Bye.